If this reaches the right dad, I stayed without seeing the outcome. I didn't know holding on would lead me to a family after growing up without love.
All right, guys. I am Jeremiah. I'll be your host today. Welcome to the Dad's Clubhouse podcast. Now, every dad has that story they didn't tell. The one before the kids, the one before the title, the one before anybody needed us. This is not a podcast about parenting hacks. This isn't therapy. This isn't about walking in, being the best dad in the world. This is the stories about us. Welcome to the Dad's Clubhouse. Guys, welcome to the Clubhouse. Again, I am Jeremiah. I'm going to be your host. Today, we have Shane Weston with us. Now, Shane Weston is the founder of Dad's Club, the OG. All right, he's got quite the story. He's got the story about before he was a kid, before the marriage, before Dad's Club, and I want to hear it today. Shane, you with us?
I'm with you. How are you, mate?
All right, good, buddy. Good to see you today.
Good to see you too. I love that music at the start, man. It's awesome.
That's right. Tony did that. He's our composer. He's got all the original sound for us. That way we don't have any copyright issues.
That's nice.
All right, we're going to hear Shane's story. Now, I've got a little bit of background on Shane already. We're going to get right to it, guys. We're not going to leave you hanging too much. We're going to give you the meat and potatoes right away. So, Shane, your story is an amazing one. Boy, you've overcome a lot, man. But what I really want to know is I want to start right at the beginning. I want to know what you were like before kids, before your wife. Who were you as a kid?
Who was I? I was a little shit, man. 4 kids, I was reckless. I was a very sad, depressed kid. I felt worthless, numb, and man, I had a few drugs in me, so I had a bit of a distorted reality of who I was, and basically just led a pretty hard life of crime and rebellion, to say the least.
Yeah, that's what you said. You said there was a lot of darkness in you. When did you first realize it was there, like that hard side?
I think what it brought on was more my mum. I hate labeling people, but if I was to label her, I would almost say borderline personality disorder and a narcissist. So a lot of her anger, I was retaliating because of that. And I think over the course of the time of learning how she communicated and acted with people, I think I developed a little bit of anger and things. So I tested a lot of the boundaries doing things like that.
Wow, man. So a lot that goes back to your mom. Now, instead of suppressing that side, you gave it a platform. Why did you do that?
Felt good. I was hanging around pretty gnarly people. At 15, I was hanging around with 18-year-olds, and in Australia, that's the legal age of drinking, driving, and doing all those things. So I felt pretty cool to be hanging around with an older crowd, and they weren't exactly the nicest of people. So I learned a lot of my stuff from that. But you get involved with driving at night, drinking, and we were evading cops and playing hide and seek with cars and scaring people. Like, it was just a kind of like a power trip than anything. The darkness felt good for me. Yeah.
It seems like that. Now, I did read in your story, you got arrested early. Am I right?
Yeah, I got arrested. I know I smile about it, but I can look back at it now. I got arrested for having a fake ID. So I got in, it didn't even look like me to get into this pub, but I went in there, and then my mate started a fight, and he bailed, and we were trying to find him. And at the outcome, a lot of people thought we were trying to break into their house, which this time we didn't. It's just that the cops pretty much come to pin us down, and then they found us. They didn't find him, and then they threw me in the car, and they just tried to get information out. And when I wouldn't give the information, they just They'd slap me around a little bit. They'd make me feel that I'm a bit of a criminal, and they handcuffed me, and then they put me into an interview room and kept me in there for about 8 hours.
Wow, over a fake ID. Now,
Over a
that's
fake ID.
crazy, man.
Yeah, man.
Now you were handcuffed, searched, interrogated. You said for 8 hours. So basically, they threw the bonds on you at 17. Did that scare you at all, or did it feel like it was just normal though for that life, that this is the way life was going to be?
Have you ever been arrested before?
Yeah, I spent about 4 days in Pittsburgh.
Okay. It's a fear. I kind of, it was a clash between saying, they don't really have much on me. I knew that, but at the same time, being arrested, and at the same time, they're saying things in the back like, "Oh, your friends are already in the rooms. They're telling us you're part of this. You've done this," and they're just trying to get more story out of me. So there was
Yeah,
that sense of like, "Oh shit, has someone kind of given us up?" Although, again, reverting back to that particular one, I knew that we didn't actually do anything. We were just looking for a mate. He basically grabbed the playing pool, and he grabbed an 8 ball from the billiards table, and he threw it at a kickboxer. And that kickboxer wanted blood. And he
I
realized
can
that, and he
imagine.
bailed.
Oh
So,
wow, I
yeah,
can imagine that. Nothing like picking the bear in the bunch to fight with, huh?
no, no, that's right.
No. Did you find that, like, looking back, man, looking back on that whole experience, let's say like the whole time, you talk a lot about your mates and trying to measure up to them, right? But like, do you think that you were trying to destroy something, like either destroy something that to hurt something like you hurt, or you're just trying to numb something inside of you?
Man, at that time, I was 15. I had I don't even know where it really stems from, but the closest thing that I can kind of combine it with is my dad left when I was 15, and
Mm,
he suffered from a mental breakdown. So he basically left us, and I didn't see him for 2 years. So that without that male role model in my life, um, I felt that rebellion in there, including with my mum, but then I also felt a little bit of abandonment and worthlessness, and I think I don't blame him for it, but I think a lot of my thoughts of pain and worthlessness, and like I had suicidal ideation all up to about 10 years ago, and I think a lot of that kind of contributed towards all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think at some point I did want to destroy myself, but I, I felt like I could have done that at any point. It's just that with this, it was kind of fun. It was kind of like being like, like an outlaw as a kid, just, kind of just
flirting with
setting
the
the
line.
boundaries. Yeah, man. So,
Wow.
I mean, I really, when I felt a bit worthlessness, I really didn't feel like I had much to kind of get away with. I didn't have anything to worry about.
So it was survival mode all the time. Wow, man. You said your dad left when you were 15. How did that change how you saw yourself without having that model?
It was hard because um, he he was a great man. Like he was joking around. I got photos of him like mucking around, sticking his finger up, and like half of them in his boxes. He was such a relaxed and calm and happy guy. And then once I found out the truth as well, because as a 15-year-old, he basically left us. The main thing that I remember at that particular point is that he was in his room for 6 months on end, and we didn't see him. We just thought that he's having some kind of issues with himself, and we didn't know the backstory to it all. And then it turned out that he suffered from a mental breakdown at his work, and he took 6 months of leave off, and that time that he spent in that time was him breaking inside. He was basically bedridden. He only got out to go for a piss. He only got out to eat a small amount of food, and then basically went in. But then my mum come in, and you'd hear her, and she goes like, "You're a piece of shit, Brian. Get up." She goes, "You're a waste of space." And we're in the lounge room here watching TV, trying to turn it up. And she's like, "You're dead to me. You don't even look after your kids. Look at you. You're just a sad piece of shit in bed." Like, it was a whole thing. And then he basically said, I'm guessing he said inside of his head, "That's enough." And he came out. I remember very distinctly. He came out and he gave me a hug and he said, "I love you kids, but I'm sorry and I have to go." And he basically left and I didn't see him for about a year. He, I honestly think that he was at his last tether. And I think that mental breakdown was that point. And then I think at some point he was planning to do something to himself.
Wow. Wow, man. That's a lot. That's a lot for a kid to take in. Now, I'm sure that affected you greatly. Now, I was reading a little bit. That started your depression. Am I correct? That
Yeah,
spurred your
again,
depression.
when it comes to it, I was already a little bit enjoying the rebellion and everything like that. I was hanging around the wrong crowd, but that kind of knocked me a little bit. So I was also thinking like, am I good enough for my friends? Am I good enough for a relationship? Even though I was young, was I good enough to get a job? There's all these little things, but at the same time, I just started seeing these small dark spurts, and it wasn't the kind of dark that I liked. It was the kind of the dark that I feared. It had a lot of things like, for instance, um, I would be waiting at the traffic lights, and then a truck would be about 50 meters away, and I said, like, how long would it take before I just, kept walking, and that would be, and then it's just a flash, and then I'd be back to reality, and be like, okay, well, that's not happening. I'm skipping that. And then I carry on. But these little spurts just kept starting to happen. So then I started thinking, you know what, I might be struggling a little bit here. So I went for professional help and they basically just medicated me at an early age. And I was just cycling between SSRIs, SSNIs, and all that.
Wow. Wow, feeling that worthless, man. Thinking about killing yourself daily. That's got to be crazy, man. How did you survive that time if you didn't have medication?
It it was hard, and the thing is, with medication, is it's not always a great thing for a kid because we become dependent on it, and it becomes just like another drug, but it's an accessible drug, and it's a cheap drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can do pretty much what you can do with regular drugs, depending on your dosage and things like that. You can get high off it. It can ease the pain. There's a lot of things for addiction, and I'm sure that you could understand that.
I can relate. I can understand what you're saying. Now, when you say the drugs, were there any other things that you were doing there to help yourself feel?
Dude, I was
Any kind
smoking
of
weed like tomorrow.
mutilation? Oh yeah.
What are you saying?
See, that'll do it too.
Dude, I
I was
feel
reading a little bit of
anything
your
from the
story. You had
vocal.
mentioned you were harming yourself too. Is that?
Yeah, that the self harm I felt was more because I was feeling numb. There was
Yeah.
times where I just have chicken scratches. I'd be playing with a knife and I might have cut a little bit too dark. I was just playing with a little bit of I don't want to say too much in regards to methods and things like that, but I
Yeah.
was
No,
in
I
a pretty dark
understand.
place. I was toying with plans and ideas and things like that, which I'm sure that people in that situation could understand.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now, do you think that those drugs and that self harm helped keep you alive long enough to keep moving forward, keep that step moving forward?
Kept me numb. It kept me,
Kept you numb.
yeah. See, with the antidepressants, my main concern with antidepressants is it made me feel a bit zombied. I felt like I was
Hmm.
kind of just getting past it. But that's when I was relying heavily on weed to kind of help me because weed that it released a dopamine in me that it would allow me to write and draw, play guitar, and I felt a little bit of calmness in that, and I think it got to a point over the course of my life that it became a crutch. So I relied on it too much, and then as everything is, when you rely on things for too much, you become dependent on it, and then you can't imagine kind of a life without it.
Wow, man, it's such a young age to start that at. So, looking back here in a second, you did just for a second. You had mentioned there was a lot of dysfunction in your family with your mother right away in the beginning of this interview. You were the youngest in the family, correct?
Yeah, I was the baby.
You're the baby, and your mother suffered from mental illness as well, as and there was addiction in your family, correct? About before you.
Yeah, my mum is undiagnosed. Obviously, my father,
Yeah,
he had his own setbacks. Everyone, it
yeah.
was the age. I'm from the 80s, man. So that was the age where your parents, they didn't seek help. So they couldn't be
Mm-mm.
diagnosed or labeled or anything like that. But they definitely showed traits. And my whole lineage of my family, my bloodline on both my father and my mother, you can see these things and they're repeating themselves. So at that point, I felt like I had the curse, you know. I had bad blood.
Mm. It was already in your system, yeah. I know that that's one of the things they say that addiction runs. It is a hereditary thing too. Well, it does. It's not hereditary, but it does help spur it. Um, Now, your mother, how would you describe your relationship with her growing up? I mean, early on.
You know, oddly, I actually had a pretty good relationship when she was good. When she was in a really
Hmm.
good kind of what I would class now, if I was to diagnose anything, would be a high manic episode where she would be really good. We got along. We went out. Again, at young age, she allowed me to drive to the shops while I had a few beers in me to both get us cigarettes at like 15,
Hmm.
16 years old. And she didn't even question that I don't have a
Wow.
license. I've never driven. But I quickly learnt how to drive based on those little experiences. And I thought she was cool. And I think at some point she thought that she was being cool as well. So we did have good moments, but at the same time, I haven't seen her in 23 years. And I have no idea if she's alive or if she's dead. And again, with my family, like, I don't talk to my brother, I don't talk to my mother, I don't talk to my sister, and I haven't seen them for years. So um, I try to avoid it. I've been trying to avoid my family and my past before, so
So
I
you
don't
would
even
say
know
that
if
you
she's alive.
escaped that?
Yeah, I tried. You can only escape so much, you know. It's
Yeah.
family, friends, all that kind of things. I can escape by that, but if I move town, what's stopping me from basically starting the same thing up again? It's I didn't fix anything
Yeah.
inside of
Really.
me.
Wow. Now your siblings, they were trying to get out as well, right?
We had this wager. We would determine when our mother would die, and we're hoping that ours, the earliest one, would win. And the only reason why we stayed in our household was because we wanted the inheritance of the house. That's what we joked about. Um, there was no
Wow.
love in there. There was nothing. It was basically we couldn't afford to get out of the house. We were too young. And then you find out that my sister went to England for 7 years, and then my brother beat this one. My brother, while she was with my father, and they I don't exactly know what happened, but they fostered him out. So we still had a family in our thing, but he was the only one that got kicked out of the house because he was living a life of crime and drugs. They booted him out, and he had a foster family, and he had a whole life around that. And man, that was a terrible life at that. But we still functioned as a family. I still don't understand to this day why that even happened.
Wow. Wow. Now you say it's been 23 years since you've seen your mother, right?
Mm.
How does that feel now as in your position where you are in life? How does that sit with you?
It's kind of good in a way because now I've got three kids, and there's a part of me saying, you know, did they miss out on having a grandmother? But at the same time, with my experience, and she never wanted to say sorry. She never admitted her own faults or anything like that. I didn't want my kids to be in that. But I did try and I've contacted her over the years, or I've tried to, and the only contact I had was through Facebook. I had no reply on that. I contacted a few of her friends, which were my old friends' parents, and they said we don't associate with that woman anymore and we don't plan to. Like, she burnt a lot of bridges along the way. She almost got remarried and they had a family. So once us kids moved out, her new family came in and they still don't even have a connection with her. And they said that they don't plan to have a connection with her either.
Wow. So that's a
I
lot,
wanted to
man.
contact her mainly. One of the good ones I wanted to contact with is because she had all my cool toys, man. There were so many cool Ninja Turtle stuff that I had that I wanted to pass on to my kids. A lot of retro things that people would be like, "You still have that?" I would have loved
Yeah,
that, but
right.
then I found out with her other family. I asked, there was a box in my room. What happened? And she basically said that within a week that I left, because I moved out to live on my own, she said she basically burnt that box. So all my childhood
Oh no,
favorite
man.
toys completely obliterated. She removed me out of her life.
Wow, man. That's crazy that that happened so soon in your life. That's nuts,
Mm.
man.
But
Now,
again, it kind of dissociates me a little bit too. It's kind of, I feel like I should be more upset about it, but I'm like, you know?
that would be that was gonna be my next question. If you know, I know we asked how does it sit with you now, but like I see that you're able to speak about it very fluidly. That doesn't, I mean, I'm not getting that message that you're heartless or anything like that. That's not the message I'm getting
No,
at all.
no.
But it feels like you've been able to make a peace with it. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I have made
A
peace with
certain
it.
peace.
Yeah, it's not really like a fix that, you know how they say you should forgive others and then you feel better. It's kind of like I've just said, you know what, it's not going to change, so there's no more point to kind of dwell on it, you know. So
God grant me the
I've
serenity.
kind of made
Yeah.
peace in my own way.
Yeah. Grant me the serenity. I understand that. Now I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to go over and talk about your father a little bit
Yeah, man.
now that we've gotten a little bit of an image about your mother. Now you said your father had a mental break or a nervous breakdown, right? When did you learn your father had that nervous breakdown? Now you said your dad came out one day and said, "I'm out of here."
Mm.
Did you know then that he had a nervous breakdown, or was this something you found out later? Like that's why dad was acting that way.
Well, it's a weird situation because as a kid, I knew there was something wrong. My brain couldn't
Mm,
process, you know, it couldn't internalize, you know what, your father that is nearly 20 years older and your 15-year-old brain can process that he's suffering from like a manic depression or a manic episode or a breakdown. I couldn't articulate that inside my head. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't exactly know
mm.
what it was. And then once he gave in, you know what? We actually envied him because he got out of the family. It was like,
Oh
who
wow,
gets to get out of the house? And the father was the first one to get out. And we're like, fucking son of a bitch, you know? Like, it's now
wow.
we're left to fend on our own. And he wasn't in the right frame of mind to take care of us or take us. And I'm pretty sure at some point I did reconnect with him later. I he disappeared for a year, but then he came back. I was 16, and at 16 in Australia, this is where you start learning to drive. So he came along and he had these old hot rod cars, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to drive." So he was showing a little bit of spark. He was not quite there. He was what I used to refer to as like a drowned cat. You know, you have like a lion that's big and strong, and then he looks
Yeah.
fluffy and he's puffed up and everything. But then after he takes a big dip in an ocean, he just looks like a drowned cat. He looks like a
Oh
all
wow.
the muscle tone and all the flame. It's all disappeared, and that's the remnants
Wow.
that I got from him. But at the same time, he was a little bit more open, and as the years progressed through, he opened up a little bit more. It was a lot to do with how terrible my mother was, but I already knew most of that.
Yeah, that's the one thing I did want to talk. I did want to touch on a little bit was the way your mom treated him. What was it like watching him deteriorate into that space while your mom verbally attacked and abused him?
I wondered why he didn't fight back. And I think if that was in my role, and again, I'm in a what I would class now. I'd be more in a sound mind than what he would have been in that situation. So if say anyone, even if my wife and came out to me and said like you're a waste of space in front of my kids, I would say, whoa, if you're going to really say things like this, make sure that the kids can't hear, for one. I don't want them to be carrying on this thing. Two, you shouldn't be talking to me. And I would have a sense of, a bit of pride in myself. And that
Yeah.
part I didn't understand as a kid. And even till very recently, like I classed him as weak because he didn't stand up for himself. Why didn't he stand up for himself? Why was he not just getting better? Like he got out of the house. Now he's had a year, like, pump some weights, get
Yeah.
fit, get healthy, and come back with a stronger mindset. And that's my logical brain thinking. That's not a broken man thought process.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And that kind of answers my next question. Like hearing your mother call him weak, about what did that, that kind of answers like what that taught you about being a man and being vulnerable. I'm sure that didn't give you the pedestal of like the big, the toxic masculine, right?
Not as such. I always wanted, after I did that, I did have a lot of anger issues, and I was always right. I started seeing a little bit of narcissistic traits in me. I don't know
Mm.
if I'm narcissistic. I don't particularly like going through labels. I think that limits
Yeah.
a person a little bit. But
Yeah.
I I made it an example that if someone in my eyes was disrespecting me, I would make sure that I told them. And I think that comes from a lot that I saw him not taking that kind of self-confidence to himself. So even if I
Yeah.
was wrong, I was right. It was it was kind of like that. I had to stand up for it.
I
But
totally understand that.
given that, I am incredibly open. I like to share my feelings now, and I think at some point I've matured through that process, and I've channeled from anger to more of a relaxed, calm demeanor. And when my kids get angry, I definitely get angry, and we go back and forth. But I make sure that if I'm like, well, I assess their age and I say, you know what, they don't deserve that. And then I go back and I apologize and I make sure that they know that I'm human and I can make mistakes. And although I'm a big, strong role model for them, I can be vulnerable.
That's right, man. That's good stuff to hear. I like to hear that. Now, speaking of your kids, your relationship with your kids, your father, the day he said goodbye, and you touched on this a little bit, but I want to hear a little more about it. The day he said goodbye, the day he walked out, said peace out. What did you feel right in that moment? Do you remember?
I felt angry that he couldn't take me. And I think within that year, after I started getting back, I actually moved in with him in a caravan park. So I lived with him probably for about 6 to 8 months until I moved into my own apartment at 17, 18. But this is where
Wow.
the clincher is. And I know I'm referring back to my mum a lot, but she she basically called me when I was at my dad's, and she said, "I'm so sorry," like this. And I'm like, "Whoa!" She's apologizing. She goes, "I miss you. I go through all these things." And I said to my dad, I said, like, "I've got friends back there. Mum's calling me," and he's like, "I understand completely." Guess what I found out? I was still on child support until I was 18, so she still had a year left. He had to pay that child support when I went back. So that was the
Oh,
angle.
wow.
Yeah, she was
That
very
was the
manipulative.
angle.
Mm. But
Wow.
again, I learned, I moved back, and then when I did move back, he set me up in my own caravan to start with until I got a little bit more money and a better job, and then I got an apartment for myself. So I was literally just fresh out of 18, and I had my own
Yeah.
unit, and I was living by myself. I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was doing all the things, and started saying, you know what, this isn't so bad.
That's awesome. So it sounds like now in a lot of these instances, you're able to speak very fondly of your dad. Now, you said you envied him for escaping. Do you still feel that way, that you envious of him that he escaped at the age you were? Maybe, you could have escaped. I mean, how do you
I
still feel
think
that way, or do you feel closure?
the part I haven't mentioned is my dad took his own life. So he did that. It was in 2006. I'm pretty sure, roughly around there. So I found that out much later in life. But now, as you said, reflecting back on it, I think he had no other choice. He was basically backed in a corner. And I think at that point he was like, this is the only step I can make. And I used to be angry at him at doing that, but now that I think of what he got to at the end, I start thinking, you know what, man, you're going to do what you're going to do. And for him, escaping a very toxic relationship, and especially kids, like we abandoned him too. Um, he had nothing. He had no family left, and you can only imagine what would happen to a man if they didn't have their family.
Wow, Shane, that's pretty deep, man.
That
That's
was
really deep.
hard.
That's a lot.
It was hard because the other thing is that I used to think suicide was my out, and when my dad did it, I'm like, shit, now I can't do that. Like, I know it sounds bizarre,
Oh,
but I was kind of like, I can't repeat that now. And that become my mantra at some point, is that I can't get myself to that point. And again, over evolution and maturity, now I'm kind of saying like, no, I can get above that now. So it started with, oh shit, now I can't do it, to I've got things that I'm looking forward to. Like, I've got a future now.
wow, Shane. So you have, am I understanding that you've found a sort of peace and understanding today in your father's legacy?
Mm. I have now. It took a while, and
Yeah, I can't imagine.
yeah, I mean, it got to a point where I just thought that I was, cursed. I had bad blood, that was my
Yeah.
life. But now,
Wow.
as I get older, like I didn't want kids because, if this is genetic, if I'm seeing this throughout my entire family line, why would I put my kids through this?
Wow, exactly, man. Trying to break that generational cycle, which is or that generational curse, and that's what I call it these days.
Mm.
But you say that bad blood, and I can really wrap my head around that. But you say you're going up with this dysfunction. Did you believe your fate was already sealed? Did you believe that you were in your core? This was what was going to be your life. There was no way to change that start.
No, well, that's the thing, is that I moved out. I got out away from my family. I build connection with my dad. I still kind of kept a bit of a distance between my sister and my brother.
Mhm.
I had a job, I had work, I had everything. So my life was starting to make a little bit of a turn back. And then, ironically, as we said, bad blood, on my 21st birthday, I stupidly jumped over a couch, and I was incredibly drunk and high. And I thought, you know what, I can clear this couch. So I went and I jumped over it, and I knocked my leg and I tripped, and then I fell on a table, and then I got up, kind of laughed half on the floor, like what an idiot. And then the next day I started gaining this bruise on my arm. And then as the days went past, the bruise got bigger and my entire arm went black. I'm like, that shouldn't be right. Um, and then I started having a lot of like muscular pain and lower back issues. And I thought, like, hard labor, maybe pass that off. Then the worst one that really kind of ticked for me is that I was starting to get restless legs at night. And it was so painful. You'd have to wake up half of the night and try and like relax your legs. And then I woke up one time, I quit smoking, and I thought, I'm getting ahead of my life. And then my vision, I went cross-eyed, and that turned out that I was cross-eyed for nearly 3 months. And I wondered, like, why am I cross-eyed? Like, why is all these things happening? And um, I thought it was a Nicorette patch. And I was at work one time, and I lost pretty much all my vision. And I said to the boss, I said, um, should a Nicorette patch make you almost blind? And he kind of laughed it off. And I said, I literally cannot see right now. I had to get taken back home, and I had a further couple of days off. And I'm like, there's something definitely on. But again, I didn't worry about it. And then I started crying to my dad halfway during the night while I couldn't sleep. And he goes, no, that's it. I'm going to come now, and I'm going to pick you up. So he took me to the hospital. I got blood test, and ironically, with bad blood, I got diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, also known as AML. So I had cancer. And I thought, you know what? This is exactly something that I would get. you know, this, I'm trying to curb my
Wow.
life back. I'm trying to get everything back on track, and I got fucking cancer.
Wow. And that was when you were 21, Shane?
21, about 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, I pretty much had that accident. And lucky I had that accident. Otherwise, some things go undiagnosed. But I never bruised as a kid. I never had blood noses. I never had any back pain. And all of a sudden, had nearly everything. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And then, yeah. So here
So
I am.
losing.
What was that?
Oh, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. You go right
Oh, I
ahead.
was just saying, I was in hospital, and I'm even in hospital. This is how kind of sad it was. Even in hospital, because I was getting fit. And I quit smoking. I was still determined to quit smoking, not knowing what I had yet. And I'm in the hospital. I'm doing sit-ups and push-ups off the hospital bed, and using like the bed as like its push-up thing. And I'm thinking, you know what? I still need to maintain. I still need to keep going. I still need to eat healthy and all the rest. The doctor basically just comes in and goes, I honestly don't know the way to tell you, but you have a thing called acute myeloid leukemia. You have cancer. And then the medication that they gave me for my pain was actually cancer treatment medication. So they started me already before they even told me. So do you know what I did?
Wow.
I went to the next room available, and I asked whoever I could, and I asked him for a cigarette, and I started smoking again that day.
I don't blame you. I would have too. I
Yeah.
absolutely would have too. Wow. Wow, Shane, that's a lot to take in, man. I'm gonna rest with that one for a second. Um,
It's a
what
story,
did that
man. It's a
do?
story.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a big chunk to take in. Um, did you think when you heard that diagnosis? Wow, Shane, when you heard the diagnosis, basically, um, my father I remember hearing my father's ACL. It was an acute myeloid leukemia too, and it was a death sentence when I was 12 years old. Now, did you think that was the end for you? Did you think
Oh, for
this is
sure.
over? There's nothing worth.
Absolutely. But you know what? The twisted part of me is that when I got better, I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn my life around. As soon as I got that diagnosed, I was straight back to square one with sort of suicidal thoughts. And I said, you know what? This might actually be a good thing because this is my way out. It's going to take me. And and then that's where I got to a point where I was like, you know what? It's probably not so bad. And you know, it is. If you ever had cancer, and you've probably seen that yourself with your father, like it can take a toll on your body mentally, physically. It drains you in every possible way. You can lose hair, you can
Every way.
lose body mass, you can lose your appetite, you can lose your sanity, you can lose everything in that point. So
Yeah,
it is a
absolutely, man.
hard task to go through. But then I thought, you know what? They actually said to me, because it was the sixth known case in Australia with that particular cancer. So I had an entourage of new doctors basically coming and checking me. So when I had something like, I had discoloration in my genital region, and I was concerned. So I told the doctors, and I said, like, is it from the chemo and all that? And he just basically said, pull it out and let's have a look. And I've got like I'm 21, dude. I've got beautiful looking nurses that are learning how to become a doctor all surrounding me, just with books and
Yeah,
textbooks, waiting to find out how discolored my genital region is, like how much hemorrhoids I had and stuff. It didn't make me feel good
wow,
at all. It was a
wow.
very hard knock to try and, like, there's a part of a boy or a man where there's like, you know what, I need to have a certain kind of dignity to myself, and I had no dignity in that time.
So that's what it was like spending that year in and out of the hospital, huh?
Yeah, man. I was. I know you don't like kilos, but it's the best way I can explain it. I was 120 kilos, which would probably be around 240 pound, I would say. And then I
Wow,
lost.
Shane.
I got to at the end about 74 kilos, which would be about 140-ish pounds.
That's 100 pounds less. Wow, losing all that weight, that muscle. Like, did you lost your hair too? I imagine, right?
I lost it all, man. I lost hair. I lost absolutely everything, and I was just nothing. I couldn't eat anything. The only thing that kept me going is pretty much just lollies because they were sweet and they kept me going. I couldn't eat
Yeah.
any of the food. I couldn't stomach it.
Wow. So what did that do to your sense of self, Shane? When you lost all that stuff you were working so hard for, you mentioned that you were in the hospital bed working out. So I imagine you took pride in the way you looked and the way you felt. What did that do to your sense of self, losing all that stuff you were working for?
That diagnosis basically stopped me in my tracks with my fitness, with my healthy eating, my cigarettes. I went back to suicidal ideations. I went through all these dark thoughts. It felt like I just basically reset back to where I was. And health and fitness, like I had an excuse now. I felt weak. I couldn't do any exercise. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. Like there was no sense of self as well. There was moments where I would suffer from kind of like a hypothermia feel, and I was wrapped up in several blankets, and the whole day I basically just spent under the blankets. And you'd have this nurse again. I don't know why, but they all become attractive nurses when you're in having cancer. And
Well, yeah.
this chick's just trying to appeal to me because she was younger as well, and I think she was a nice lady, but I think she knew that she could sway herself a little bit to try and get me to exercise. So she's in there pulling in an entire bloody exercise bike into my room. And I just watched her for 10 minutes doing it, saying, "Oh, this is how easy it is." And I said, "Well, that's nice. You can wheel it back out because I'm not touching it." And as soon
Wow.
as my first round of chemo, I basically was screaming out the nurses every time they went to put the blinds up because it hurt my eyes. I was just a shell of myself. There was no self. I was just nothingness.
Wow, Shane. I'm going to ask you a big question here, and you don't have to think about it too much, but it's a big question. What, what kept you here, Shane? What kept you holding on?
At that time, not a lot. I got to a point. I was on some pretty funky medication. They gave me this pill, which was an LSD based pill. I never took hallucinogens at that point. I I found this person, which I still believe is either a ghost or a hallucination, but we were both trying to break out of the fifth story of that building, trying to jump out the window. There was not a lot holding me down, but as the months progressed, I just I still felt like shit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like there was nothing good happening. It was basically you'd have to have chemo. You're on for 2 weeks, isolation. No one could come visit you. Then people can come visit you. My dad was actually my rock. Ironically, he was. This is how much guilt I have for my dad, and especially now that he took his own life. Like I can't get that back. Like he would finish work. He would work a full 14-hour shift as a truck driver. He made an arrangement with the nurse that after hours that he could still come in just to say goodnight to me and bring me food that he knew that I would like to try and get me to eat. And he would sit there by my side for hours on end. But the saddest and most guilty thing that I had from all that is that when I knew he was there and I was still in a depressive thought, I pretended I was asleep. So every time I would check every 20 minutes and he'd still be standing there. He'd still be sitting there. He'd still be just pacing around. He'd be preparing my food. He'd be cleaning my area. And I would just say like, fuck, why won't he just leave? Like he's got to go back to work. Just get out and let me to my own misery. And he was persistent. He actually really stepped up given his circumstances, and I deeply regret that, and I never apologize for that. I've never got to a point where I said, you know what, you were really that rock for me, dude. Like he was the one that he he mitigated all my when I couldn't go to work. He was the one that went to the agency to get me my weekly pay. He contacted my work. My work donated and gave me all money. He talked to my mum, and my mum basically said on the phone, she goes, "He knows where I'm at, so he can call me when he needs to." So, and that's the only time that I ever saw, like, heard. I didn't even get to talk to her or anything like that. And he got into a big fight with her. Then he tried to get my brother and my sister, after I'm not talking to them, he tried to get them to come and see me. and not even they were playing any kind of ball. My sister a little bit, but I was pretty much by myself and with my dad. And then as soon as I got better,
Wow.
I'm like, okay, well, I bet this because I'm 22, right? So I've got my age, I've got my health to kind of help me bounce back with a remission. So I'm like, all right, well, let's start again. Let's try this again. And then over a course of time, once my body started feeling a bit better, I started getting a little bit more stronger and things like that. But I was hoarding medication at the same time. I was prepared to go as soon as I got better. And that's the thing, is that once you get into that point of um, cancer and isolation, like I was already in a dark place, but I was too weak. There was one instance where I stockpiled medication just so on the times where I could tolerate my pain, I would hold that medication and I would put it under my pillow in the little slip. And my big plan was to take them all, and I did take them all at one point, but my body rejected it. So what I was over the toilet vomiting. The nurse comes in. She knew no different because I was vomiting every single day. So I couldn't even do that. I couldn't do anything. So my goal was to get strong so I could attempt again. And then over a course of time, my brain started adapting and I started going, you know what, now I've got another chance. I can kind of think about this. I can maybe find someone and have a kid and get on with my life. And then I did find someone for a while, which was quite nice.
Yeah. Wow, Shane. Whew, that's a lot, man. But when you said your body rejected the overdose, your body rejected it, and you were there. You're hugging the toilet. You're vomiting. You're still sick from cancer. What was going through your mind, Shane?
I can't even kill myself. I am that sick that I can't even do a thing that I thought I could control. And that's the thing, is that I thought once I got better, I thought, you know what, I'm I'm good now. And then you start getting all these bad thoughts of like you're getting hit with the idea of cancer. Like it's life changing. And it's amazing of how fast you think you've really got past a lot of things, and then you get some devastating news, and how fast you can revert back to where you were. Only this time now I wasn't in a position to actually do anything about it anymore. My body wouldn't allow me. My mind couldn't get through that. So I was there
Yeah.
just thinking, what even am I right now? Like I can't even do what I want to do.
Wow. So you felt like that you couldn't do it. That you couldn't do it. But did you ever feel like your attempt was being blocked on purpose? Like there was a purpose for you. There was something else there for you.
I'm not religious in any point. I can be
Yeah.
spiritual. I can meditate. Higher power. I believe in a force. I don't believe in like a god as such. Each to their own. But
Yeah.
at that point, I was cursing God. Even though I don't believe in a god, I was cursing a god for giving me this situation and then giving me the life that I had. And and you would think
Wow.
there would be a story to that being a religious faith thing. Still not faithful. Like I don't have faith backing, but it's funny that you just start going at spiritual entities, even if you don't believe them, because you're trying to find a blame. You're trying to find something towards it.
Wow. You did mention that you had that you took an experimental drug and there was hallucinations and you made this friend.
Mm.
And you guys were talking about the open window leaving through the fifth story. I remember. How real was that friend to you when you were going through these hallucinations? Did you feel like that was
It
like
was
there was
real as
something
real
there
can
keeping you
be.
moving? Really?
It was real. This hallucination, dude. I remember another point where I said to the nurse, and this is the most bizarre thing, is that I said I was in some kind of dreamlike state, and I said I thought that I thought there was nothing there, and I thought it was like a petrol station, and I asked for a pack of cigarettes, and I remember pointing up and going, I want the ones up the top there. And then the nurse comes in, and I got a little bit embarrassed. I'm like, I know I'm just having a bad dream, I guess, and all the rest. And then the real nurse came in. So I fabricated the shop, the shopkeep, and the nurse, the first nurse that came in. And I thought this was all completely real. So this person that was trying to help me, as far as I knew, they still existed. I thought they were a patient. They talked to me. We had in-depth talks and everything like that. It was insane. But he had the answer for me. He knew a way out, and I was following him.
Wow.
But again,
Did you
if
know
you look
then
a
that you
little
didn't
bit,
want to live anymore? Oh, go ahead.
it was a bit, yeah, it was in the thought process, but at the same point, like this guy's saying, oh, like I've gone through a similar, like this was a cancer ward, so he's going, I've gone through a similar thing, like I know there's a window up here. So we actually climbed upstairs and we got through. I'm actually surprised with the little, I had a drip, I had a chemo drip on me, and I was
IV drip.
wheeling this pole around by myself, thinking I was with this other dude, and we're trying to find the I think it was classed as the smokers out. So when a nurse wanted to have a cigarette and it was on the fifth floor, they had a way out so they could go outside on the terrace to have their cigarette and then come back in. He knew
Yeah.
about this miraculous passage, and I'm like, shit, yeah, let's take it. Let's go down that way. And then that's how we do it. But if you look at it as in more of a, like, if you want to go further down the rabbit hole, like, was it a ghost? Was it figment of my imagination? Was it a hallucination? Was it real? I have no idea. I still don't know to this day.
Wow. It blows your mind, huh?
Oh yeah.
Wow. But you eventually got to remission, though, correct?
Yeah, man. I got out,
Obviously.
and I actually never I never faltered. I had remission and I never got it back. And I actually did 6 monthly checks. You got to do 6 monthly checks for 5 years, and then after 5 years you do it each year. I never got it back again. So whatever happened worked, and it was just like a year and a half of my life that was just this whirlwind. And then after that experience, you get inducted back into society and nature and everything like that. It's just like a lot of things have changed.
What'd that feel like, Shane? When you got that remission, did it feel like you had a new lease on life? What did things look like, man? What did it when you walked out of that hospital, knowing that you weren't going back in there? What did the world look like to you?
I was still pretty down. At the start, they gave me 3 months of prescription medication, and a lot of that was the strong stuff. And that's probably the stuff that I shouldn't have had. And
Wow.
they gave me that as a 3 month prescription to take home. So I had a lot of pain medication. I
That's
had
a lot of pain meds.
a lot of drugs. And that was a constant thought because I couldn't bring myself to getting rid of it. I couldn't bring myself to um, handing it out. Like I every now and again I would make an excuse. Oh, I'm feeling like a bit of pain, so I'd take one or two, just take the edge off, and that started going down a little spiral there where pain medication was now my new crotch. So then I had pain medications, and I was still smoking weed at that point. So I was still in a quite low mood, but fortunate I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, I got to do something about it. I've got to change myself, and that's when I started trying to spiral back up again. So it was just like this roller coaster, man.
Wow. Would you feel that do you feel like there was some sort of divine intervention? I know you said you weren't you weren't a faithful man, which is understandable, but did you feel like there was something at work there?
I feel like I took it for granted. I found at some point, you know what, maybe I was meant for something, like for some reason since I'm 15, I've been trying to take my own life, and everything has stopped me from doing that. Life in itself has stopped me in every single way. And again, if you did look at it through a religious perspective, that would look like divine intervention, I'd imagine. That would look like there's someone telling me, you know what, that's someone up there looking after you. There's an angel on your shoulder, and you know what, that I'm not ruling out a possibility. It just doesn't drive me in my future to take that path. But I felt like I took advantage of it because I didn't instantly feel like, you know what, this is time to go on a mission, go to bloody a third world country and, you know, help them out with
Yeah.
food. And, you know, like there was none of that thought process of charity and all that. It was just like, oh, great. Okay. Now I'm back. How do I indoctor myself back into society? I have to get a job again. Well, I had a job. They actually gave me my job back from a year after that. And then from that, I actually said, oh, you know what, maybe I could apply for a manager position. And it's just slowly going, all right, well, they're giving me a second in charge position. They obviously trust me, or they're giving me it because of what happened. And then there was a fight back and forth, like, I deserve this, or are they only giving that because of that? So there was a lot of that worthlessness mixed with trying to get better, if that makes sense. It was like just a push and pull feel.
Yeah. I understand. So you said you worked on yourself then. You were working. What changed about you getting back into work? I mean, did it immediately make your life meaningful, or was it like confusing as to like, why am I here? What did you do to work through that?
Um, I started meditation because when I was still smoking, it kind of put me in like a little state of mind anyway. So I thought, you know what, I'll put on a few YouTube meditation things, and then that went into like they're doing a bit of breath work. So I gave that a go, and I felt pretty good. The Wim Hof, I tried that. That felt pretty good. Then I'm like, oh, let's go down that rabbit hole. I found out that the person that did the YouTube was, you know, a spiritual kind of person. Oh, they've written a book, read the book, and it started slowly changing my mindset. It started going, you know what, like they're getting this done. And a lot of you, I don't know if you know read a lot of motivation videos or podcasts, but they're always saying we come from a life of struggle and we got here. Even Tony Robbins had that story, and you know,
Yeah.
things like that. And he got out of it and he got to that point. So every place, every good story has that level of struggle. So why am I any different? And then over a course of time, I'm like, yeah, this isn't that bad. And then that's when I met my first wife. Hence, I say first wife. But I met her, and I lived with her, and we started to figure out a family for 8 years. But then life showed its ears again. Yeah, and I said, you know what, maybe I should have kids. I've now got, you know, a wife. We rushed in very quickly, and I thought, you know what, let's have kids. And then because I had cancer, my sperm count was incredibly low. And if you're thinking freeze sperm, I did freeze my sperm, but because I smoked a lot, my sperm count was already low. So I said, all right, well, this is a setback. And then I found out that my ex-wife had problems with her reproductive system, and then we couldn't have kids. So now I'm married, plans to be a father, and then over a course of time, we're just like, oh, you know what, we don't really need kids. You know, we can live without them. We can function, and then we convinced ourselves that kids weren't on the cards for us, and we're just going to adapt as we go. But you know, over the course of time, I think I was trying to find my anchors, and that was one of the anchors. And then when I didn't have kids, you know, it slowly started spiraling back again a little bit, and it started going, you know, like, what are we really doing? And she didn't go back to work, and I was supporting her for nearly 8 years. And I'm like, at some point, she's got to go back to work. And then she had mental health issues, and then she started showing traits of what I saw in my mother, and then I started resenting her from it.
Wow.
And then guess what? We're
Wow,
back to
man.
square one, except now I'm married to my mother.
Wow. So, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. You said you
Mm,
married quickly, right? You married quickly your first time. You think you were
mm.
chasing love, chasing stability? The the IVF wouldn't rear its head for a couple minutes. So I mean, like, what were you chasing there? Do you think?
At the point, I thought I was chasing getting my life on track, but I actually think I was just chasing the all Australian dream, all American dream, all life dream. Have kids, have a family, you know,
I
have
can relate
all
to
the
that.
things that everyone has.
I can relate
And
to that
that,
completely.
yeah, like if you can relate, like that's when I had that, I'm like. this is my chance. So I jumped at it and I rushed very quickly to get it. And it was just like, oh, right, well, I need it now. And if I don't get married to this woman, then I'm never going to have this chance again. Or there's no one that's going to love me for who I am ever again. So this was my
Yeah.
in, man. Yeah.
And that said, wow. So you said that relationship unraveled over 8 years. You were supporting her. Now you were supporting her, financially, physically, emotionally, supporting her struggles while you were declining on your own. Correct? You said you were unraveling at that point.
Mm. Yeah, well, it started slowing back, and then towards the end of that relationship, I started seeing more and more of my mother's traits in her. Like, she would throw negative things at me, like my mum would do to my dad. Like, well, like I'd get to a depressive point where I had to go back on medication, like actual antidepressants. I was that low at one point, and she's going, why are you back on that? Like, you don't give me any time. You don't do this. You don't do that. And I'm starting to associate and say, well, this is kind of how my mum was with my dad. And I started seeing a repeating factor. I'm like, this is it. This is my next decline. This is what's happening. And then I started getting sad, depressed thoughts anymore. That whole elated of cancer, solving all that diminished. I'm back to again. So I'm back to that spot once again. And then that's
So you're
when
scaling.
I was scaling. I started upping my medication. I started taking this thing. I actually did research on a particular medication. Well, it wasn't medication. It was like a synthetic drug, and it was legal. I tried to get on that because I knew people were ODing on it. I thought, you know what, if it happens, it happens. If not, then I've given it a shot. And then
Yeah.
I took it all, and I was spiraling again, and I was almost back to my OD stage. So then I finished it all and I got back and I remember falling onto the ground. And then I had this reoccurring thoughts of, you're going to die from this. This is the end. This is it. And then at the same point, he's like, but you had a good life. You had peace. You had love. And then it's like, yeah, but you're going to die. This is it. Like you can feel your heartbeat starting to slow down. You're feeling all this. And then at the same point, it's going, yeah, but you enjoyed this. This is what you wanted. And I had this push and pull, which felt like nearly an eternity. And then she called the ambulance and I fought off the ambulance guy, which is a big burly guy. And he won. He restrained me, put me on a bed, and then they pumped my stomach. And then I was back in hospital thinking, hey, I'm strong now. I had everything that I thought I had, and I still couldn't do it. So then,
Wow. So
yeah,
that's
I started spiraling again, and that's what gave me the driving factor. I'm like, I can't have this relationship; it's bringing me down. So I broke up with her, and she gave me the house, and now I had the same depressive thoughts. I had my own house and my own device. I started self-harming again. I started going down to that spiral again. It was just knocked me down. And then fortunately from that, I worked on myself again. I said, I've been here before. Um, so I did what I did, as I just explained. I checked out a few YouTube. I checked out some meditation. I had books about the Tao, the way of life, and I read a few poems that reflected to how chaos in water can become like a violent stream, and you're the rock, and it just started to kind of unravel and relax me a little bit, and thinking, you know what, situations happen, but I'm supposed to be this rock. Everything in chaos is supposed to pass through me. I'm supposed to be here. And then I started filling my head back again with positive thoughts. And, you know, guess what happens? 8 months after that relationship, I started getting better. And then I meet the one that I was supposed to be with, my actual wife now. And we've been together for 10 years and we've got 3 beautiful children.
wow, Shane. My wife, I didn't know that. My wife and I have been together for 10 years too. Wow, Shane.
Nice.
Wow. Talk about redemption, man. Talk about redemption, my man. I don't
It's
even,
it's a
wow.
hard story, but it comes. I when I tell my story, I've tried so many times because I'm in a suicide awareness organization. I run one in a local store, so I run out bereavement because I've lost my father, I've lost my brother-in-law, which we didn't get into, and I've lost my cousin about 4 months ago that was struggling. Um, I run a bereavement group for families that have been affected and touched by suicide. So this is very in my wheelhouse now. I make it a part of my life, but it also helps me to explain how I was. And in that, you're supposed to create stories, and you're supposed to have, there's got to be an arc in a story where you had a shit life, but it got better. But mine doesn't work like that. It just spirals back and forth to an endless route. And fortunately, for 10 years now, I've been on zero medication. I've been happy. I've loved my life. I've loved my children. I've loved my wife. I've loved my whole family. But I say this, even though I am in my stage, do you know where do you think that I would be if I lost one of my children?
Yes, it's so I often I won't make this about me, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. I have a similar story similar to yours, Shane. Very similar, multiple um, unwindings, and I feel like I'm at a good place in my life. But again, like you said, what would happen? I often think about that. Where would I be? It's so fragile. It's so fragile, Shane, and you understand that. It really is. Wow. So here we are now. Looking back now, there's a couple of small questions I want to ask you. What was, if you could think about it, what was the real battle you were fighting before you came to find your peace with your wife and your family today?
It was survival. I was
Survival.
battling myself. Yeah, man. I was battling myself.
Yeah. That's that was what I was thinking you were going to say. I mean, when you're battling yourself, I am my own worst enemy. I get my own way a lot. Now, what is one thing you are most afraid people are going to see about you or see in you from back then? If you want to answer that or not.
I tell my story openly as when you asked me to do this, and like we're starting this for the Dad's Club, so we're running this, and what kind of person would we be if I didn't tell my story as well? I'm happy telling my story, but at that point, there's a sensitivity in me when I go back to reality where this isn't all my story. I've still got a story to tell. I've still got a chance to do better. I've still got a chance to be more positive and more happy. I've probably got more a chance to also be down and upset again. But the trick for me is to just keep kicking that little wheel back over like a generator when it runs out. It's just got to keep refueling. You just keep firing it back up. And over the course of times, I'm finding things to try and get me back to that. But when people see me, they see I don't give them a lot in everyday life. Like my work people, if they see this, then this is the way they're going to find out. But I don't make it my story. I don't make it that, I'm a victim. I had a shit childhood. It doesn't define me exactly. That's right. I've got more qualities. I don't want it to be my end. I don't want it to be my defining thing. I don't want them to look at me and say, you know what, this guy's shit bloke. Like he's just having a shit time in life. I want to enjoy life. I've got kids. I want them to enjoy life. I want to be inspirational for them.
Wow. That's great, Shane. That is a testament. That is a great story. Wow. I'm going to give you an opportunity here because I don't really have any more questions, but I really want to give you the opportunity. I'm going to let you give a nice closing thought. What is something, if you could say anything to the world right now, I'm going to give you X amount of time to say anything you want to the entire world, and I want you to go for
it. It's not always a happy start. It's not always a happy ending. But if you don't give it a go, you don't find out. Like with me, I honestly did not see the life I had, and if I had a small hindsight of where my life is now, that would have been enough. But you don't get that little snippet of your future. You don't get that point where it's, you know what, it's all worth it in the end because this is the outcome. I didn't think I was going to have kids. Like my biologically system, my reproductive system said no. It's not happening. My previous past said no, but I have 3 kids. I have 3 amazing kids, and they're happy, they're healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes. They are beautiful kids. They're smart children, and I love them dearly. My wife, she's so forgiving for a lot of my things, and I'm not perfect, and it's not going to be a perfect world for people. But you know what? You don't know unless you go. There's always that thought in the back of your head, you know what, like, this isn't going to get better for me. And I was right there with them. And if you listen to the story, you can see that I've tried a few times. But the goal for me and what I want to tell the world is, you know what, just keep trying. Make one day. Get through one day. Go again. Keep trying. Just keep kicking that wheel back over again. And I know it seems defeating and it seems purposeless, lack of worth and not purposeful. But you know what? There could be that slim chance that life could change for you. And I hope that it does, because that feeling from feeling so low to feeling so good, it's amazing. It is truly the best outcome that you can get. It's better than any LSD trip, anything that I experience. It's better than anything. It's, you know, it's, yeah, just keep going. That's the biggest takeaway I would say, is just keep kicking on with life. And that's why we started the Dads Club, you know, like all these dads groups are all about, you know, small memes and jokes and things. Like when we started this group 6 years ago, our purpose has always been support the dad, because as you're a testament of that. You've created a podcast based on that. This is the whole purpose of doing things like that, is you are creating a platform for dads to actually just get out there and talk about it. And that's truly amazing. And I'm appreciative that you have started doing that. I stepped back from the Dads Club for a long time, and you took that up. And I'm truly grateful for that, because you've just taken it into new lengths, dude.
No, thanks, Shane. Thank you. Wow. Shane Weston, everybody. Shane Weston. I want to thank you, Shane. That was a hell of a story. And I want to thank you for sharing that with us, sharing it with the world. You know, by sharing our stories, perhaps we'll be able to help at least one or two other dads feel not so alone in their journey. And I think that's the secret to what we're doing here is helping the dads understand that their situation isn't unique, that someone has walked in their path before, that there is hope. And I think your story is a testament to that, Shane. Thank you so much for coming on today. Okay.
I appreciate you, mate. I appreciate you. And I hope at some point that you're going to tell us your story. I know parts of it because we're good mates, but I want to hear you on here too. I want you to tell your story too, if you're up for it. I'm absolutely up for it.
We'll see about that. We'll see.
I don't know how you're going to
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
The Wizard of Oz. I just watched Wicked, so you can become the Wizard of Oz, mate.
There you go. All right, everybody. Well, again, I want to thank Shane Weston for coming on today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving us your time. It's the listener. It's you that's really going to help this take off. Now, if you get an opportunity, please hit the share, hit the like button on that. Share this out. Believe me, this is a great story. This is one for the books. So go ahead, listen to it again, get back there and see if you missed anything. Again, thank you so much. And I want to let you know that we are looking for sponsors, folks. So if you're interested in getting on the show or interested in being a sponsor, please reach out to me via DM, via email. You can reach me at jkarrasch@gmail.com. Shane is reachable as well. And don't forget to go over and check out the Dads Club. We've got our page and our group. So check out both. If you're a dad, you're welcome to the group. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. On that, we're going to wrap up. This is the Dads Club Clubhouse podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thanks again, Shane. You guys take care. We're out of here.